Welcome back to Unspoken Emotions, the podcast where we shine a light on the stories that often live in the shadows. I'm your host, Rachel Ali Malik, and today is a very special episode, one that is incredibly close to my heart. My guest today is my best friend of 34 years, Mrs. Rachel Rose. We've walked through life together, side by side, through laughter, heartbreak, growth, and unimaginable challenges. And today she's a qualified midwife, a mother of four, and a fierce advocate. But behind her strength lies a journey so complex, so raw, and so deeply moving, it deserves to be heard. Rachel's second-born son, Dylan, was a happy and smiley baby, but as he grew, it became clear something wasn't quite right. He remained silent, living happily in his own world, but eventually he was diagnosed with severe autism. What followed was a life-altering journey filled with health scares, transatlantic treatments, relentless battles with authorities, and decisions no mother should ever have to make. From being a single mother and full-time probation officer to facing the heartbreaking reality when the decision was taken out of her hands and Dylan was placed into residential care, Rachel's story is one of raw resilience, silent suffering, and unwavering love. Rachel, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know how hard it is to revisit these moments, but your story will speak to so many people who carry their own unspoken emotions in silence, and so we're grateful for you joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, Rach, let's start at the very beginning. Can you take us back to when you first became a mum? What did that time look like for you? And what were your hopes and emotions as a young mum?
Wow, it's such a long time ago now, but I became a mum at the very young age of 20 during my final year of university. So my parents were definitely not best pleased, and I had a beautiful little girl, Georgia, and then very quickly, just 17 months later, I had my son Dylan. So yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. I was living away in Sheffield, so away from my family and support network. So yeah, it was challenging, I'm not going to lie, but it was also, really good times with the little ones when they were small, and I got some really good memories of just the three of us at that point.
Exciting times though, being a young mum, and obviously as daunting as it is, I was a young mum too, but it was, it was exciting thinking about the times that are going to be ahead and things like that, and just enjoying those moments.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk about when you first started noticing that something might be different with Dylan? What were the early signs that you started picking up on, and what was going through your mind at the time?
So I think with Dylan, he was a boy, and so all I had off most people, if I noticed any like subtle differences with him, was that, well, he's a boy and you've had a girl. Also, when he originally was starting to hit all of his milestones. He was a breastfed baby, so like eye contact was, it's really noticeable. You're very much in love with this new baby, and everything was going really, really well. But as soon the initial differences I felt were that he just wasn't as responsive as Georgia. To be honest, I thought he was deaf. I thought he was hard of hearing, or he had or he was going to be diagnosed as being deaf. He was in his own little world a lot of the times, and I was quite vocal, let's say, and asking for help and saying, look, something isn't right. And like I said, I was constantly having the contrast between having a little boy and a little girl, and also that there was only 17 months between them. Like, he didn't have to speak. His sister was speaking for him. That kind of mentality, or that kind of response from the health visitor, from the doctor. So yeah.
Did that leave you feeling frustrated then, Rach? Because obviously as a mum, you'd like to think you know your children, and you know when something's just not right, and there's an instinct within you, and you were obviously trying to raise these issues and feeling as a mum something's not right, and obviously they were these concerns that you had, they were being closed down by the health authorities and the, health visitor and things like that, and the doctors. How did that leave you feeling at that time?
Yeah, it definitely was frustrating. I think that as a mum, like, your maternal intuition is something that you should always trust. And I definitely learned the hard way that actually it's quite hard to portray and get all your feelings across, especially when you're a young mum, actually. I was constantly asked, is this your first child? And I was, well, no, it's my second, but irrelevant. I feel and I knew there was something different. However, autism didn't even enter my head at all. This is back in, he was born in 2002, and autism wasn't something that was really talked about so much, which is hard to understand in today's society, where it's just sort of bandied around so inappropriately, really. Everyone's like on the spectrum, or people use it as a slur, don't they? Oh gosh, she was on the spectrum, or but back in the day it wasn't really like that. And the only sort of reference that I'd had in relation to autism was, ironically, which has always come back to haunt me, is the Rain Man film, So yeah, I mean, it was definitely not on my radar even. So, but as time went on, and I was relentless in my quest to find out what was wrong with my child. He was suffering with ear infection, so it made sense to me that he'd been diagnosed with glue ear. He was constantly on antibiotics for ear infections. We lived up north; it's colder. So yeah, for me, it just sort of played in hand, really. I thought he was deaf. He had ENT issues, but yeah, that wasn't to be. So. I was quite lucky because Dylan was diagnosed very early, in comparison to today anyhow. So by the age of 2, I had a fully fledged, confirmed diagnosis of autism, which is almost unheard of. So yeah, it was...
Yeah, that's definitely unheard of now, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
Children nowadays are just, well, they won't give a diagnosis of anything, sort of below the ages of 4 or 5, let alone autism. My son they won't give a diagnosis of asthma for him, and he's just turned 5, so autism is far more serious with that. And yeah, so to be diagnosed by the age of 2 with autism back then, especially when it was not as out there as it is now. It's very common now for, it's much more common now for a child to be having autistic needs somewhere on the spectrum, whether it's on the low end or the middle, it's somewhere. We hear about it all the time now, but back then it just wasn't around, was it? So to be by the age of 2 having a full diagnosis of that, I mean, gosh, what did you think about that at the time? How did it make you feel?
Yeah, I think at first it was relief. I think that because I knew there was something wrong, and I'd pushed and pushed and pushed for it. So to finally have some validation that actually I'm not crazy, I didn't have postnatal depression as was suggested by my GP, that I wasn't just anxious, that there was something tangible wrong with my child, and that I felt validated. I felt relief at first. And then having the statement, having it in black and white, and that was really hard to read, even though you knew and you're sort of glad that you've been listened to, but then it's real, and then you have to deal with the consequences of that actually becoming your reality. So yeah, at first I'd say relief, and there's a lot of rage then. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think, why me, because fleetingly you definitely think, why me, but then I definitely felt, well, why not me? And actually, as much as I hate the saying special children go to special people and all that malarkey, I definitely feel that I was lucky to be in a position where I could advocate for Dylan. I was articulate enough to put pen and paper together, and then the next thing I did with that information was research, and literally left no stone unturned, no bandwagon, not taken upon, yeah, definitely as soon as I had that official diagnosis, then it was all systems go, and this was not going to be my child's future. Little did I know at that time that obviously it's lifelong, but I thought if there's anything that I can do, then that is what I was going to do. I was going to change it. I was going to take this away. He was going to lead a normal life in my naivety at that time. Definitely.
Yeah, of course. I mean, knowing you as I do as well, I know that you will go down rabbit holes. So I know you definitely did not leave any stone unturned back then, doing all your research into autism and what you could sort of expect then from Dylan and from everything really, and how your life was going to change. But with all of that research, did any of that bring any clarity to you, or did it open up more questions and fears? Did it make it any worse for you knowing what actually was happening with Dylan?
Yeah, definitely. I think at first you're just in a bit of denial, a lot of denial actually. Like I said, you do everything to fight it. You're gonna look for anything, and we did. Change his diet, looked at different supplements, teaching aids, speech language, art therapy, play therapy. You name it, we've done it. And on top of all this then, Dylan has obviously got learning difficulties, he's non-verbal, he used to suffer with seizures. There was a lot of different things going on at the same time, but there was everything you can imagine that we could do, we did do. And that was with the full support of my family, especially my mum. Like I said, that's all, she's always been there to co-parent Dylan and Georgia at the time. So yeah, between us, we were adamant that we were going to do everything. I do remember when Dylan was and still is gorgeous, but he was a very beautiful little boy.
I can second that. Yeah, I can absolutely second that. What a handsome. So he had. I mean, obviously, those listening and maybe watching this, they won't know, but just to describe him, he had he had a lovely colour on his skin. He wasn't a pasty child. He was a beautiful he was just gorgeous colour. And his hair was blonde, curly blonde hair. He looked like an absolute model child and a beautiful smile. So yeah. he was stealing everybody's hearts back then, and he still continues to do so.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, to look at, sorry, go on. No, I was going to say, to look at him, like remembering him back in his very early years, because obviously I was fortunate enough to be there. Anybody looking at him would have absolutely no clue, because there's no, with autism, there's no, like on the surface when they're at that age, you didn't. Yeah. There was no telltale signs, was there? And we just thought he was just such a happy, smiley baby, that we all loved and adored.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as he was getting older, obviously the behaviours would become like more apparent, and people would often look at me very disapprovingly, like, you can't control your child, or he's having a tantrum, or he's spoilt, that kind of thing, So yeah, that was like difficult to navigate in terms of him being the behaviours and the challenging behaviour that he would display. But as a cute little kid, you can literally pick them up, put them to a place of safety, and it's very, very different, to navigate when they're younger. So it was really difficult then to see like older children in the same situation as I was in. And I honestly, with guilt, I do remember, seeing older children or teenagers with severe autism, and just thinking my child will never be like that, and then feeling awful because that is someone else's child, But and in those early days, for me it was all denial. It was very much what can we do then? We can't. This can't be it. We have to keep going. And you've got so many hopes and dreams for your child. So I think that denial sort of takes you through a lot of the initial diagnosis and the early days, definitely. So
yeah.
Like not soon after, it has massive impact on your relationship. So me and Georgia and Dylan's dad, we broke up. I moved back to Swansea to be with my family. Without a moment's hesitation, my mum, picked us up from up Sheffield and put us up in our family home, and we lived there in the early days, like navigating like what's next really. So a lot of fear, definitely, like, you know, what's going to happen. Fear and denial. That's what I'll go with for the early years, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, bless you. It wasn't very long after that, Rach, that you took a huge leap of faith and flew to Texas to get some treatment, specialized treatment for Dylan. What led you to make that decision, and what was the experience like for the both of you?
Well, it's a very knowing me as you do, it's a random story. So I'd been lucky enough to have a holiday in Hawaii, as you do, and there's no direct flight, so it was Hawaii to LA, and then we had a massive delay flying back to London, and I'd been to LA before, and I knew about this area that's quite close to the airport called the Grove. So we thought, where could we kill a few hours, you know? So we went to the Grove, and there was a bookshop there, and I was just walking around the bookshop, and there was a public speaker there, and I'm not sure if you remember this person, but back in the day, so the early 2000s, this was Jenny McCarthy, who was a presenter on MTV, amongst other things, and she was in a relationship at the time with Jim Carrey. And she, so, you know, big names, and she had a little boy called Evan who had severe autism. So I was like, obviously straight away, you know, interested, and I was listening and bought her book, and that's where the next part of our journey sort of like started really. So she was talking about something called ABA, which is applied behaviour analysis, and like I said, at this point, you know, you do anything in the world, you know. So that's that's how I initially found out about it. I came home to the UK and initially started like researching it. Found that actually in the UK there wasn't really much out there. Found some, you instantly find your tribe, don't you? You know, and I found some like-minded mothers. Mainly there were some fathers, but they were mainly mothers. A very passionate group of women that were, you know, also on the same path as myself. Met an incredible lady called Riska Solomon, who was right at the beginning of her career, but was very interested in ABA and was setting up her own sort of her own program. And then I found Thoughtful House, which was based out in Austin in Texas, and I just knew that I had to at least try, you know. So we raised the money to go, because obviously it's all self-funded out there, and we just packed our bags and we left for Austin and entered this medical intervention program. And at the time it was very frustrating in the UK, because we knew how important early intervention was, and it just wasn't available. The waiting lists were massive, and when you did get to the top of them, it was quite poor. Like the speech and language, the everything that, you know, we knew that his frustrations were based by not being able to communicate, and then he would be allocated, you know, 17 hours a term. You know, it was. And if they turned up to his statement meetings, that was taken out of the teaching time. You know, it was just really poor provision. So so that was the start of the next sort of chapter really, and that transformed a lot of how we dealt with Dylan. And his communication was improved dramatically. When we went there, he was doubly incontinent. It was costing me lots of money in terms, because I didn't actually know at the time there was an incontinence service, because nobody tells you. So I had to buy, like, you know, nappies for a child, you know, continuously. And yeah, so I think our experience in America, the tests and the examinations that we had in a very short amount of time would have taken me years to achieve in the UK. So we were incredibly fortunate to be in that position to do it. And then, of course, to take the tools home with us then to continue when we got back. It was life-changing for Dylan at that time, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we arrived back in the UK after successfully completing the programme. And I had a little boy that was previously could become very anxious in certain situations, would, you know, like scream and just be in a ball, and it was like quite hard to not always, but, you know, would become very upset, distressed in certain situations. So now I could take him to a restaurant, you know. So, and he was completely toilet trained. He went to a pill popping clinic out there because I'd previously, thinking that you're a good mum, I'd only ever given him like water or milk, both that you can't hide medications in. So for us, it opened so many doors and it changed our world for a long time. Yeah.
Did that leave you, obviously coming back here then to the UK, did that leave you somewhat deflated, knowing what you were going to be coming back to, and obviously the battles that you'd had to fight for basic human sort of rights and care that you should have and could have received, but the time delays on that, did that leave you frustrated, knowing, because you'd just gone to the other end of the scale with it and had so many different tests in such a short period of time, which made an absolute massive improvement to Dylan's life and overall health at that time, to coming back then to the system that is very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And we came back and such was the frustration that I felt that there just wasn't any provisions available for him in the locality, that we withdrew him from the education system and we actually set up our own home education programme. Wow. It was funded by the LEA, the local education authority based in our area. But it was such a battle. It was so difficult, so much red tape to leap through. But we did it, and we had a successful ABA programme running for the whole of his primary education. So beyond lucky to have been able to put that in place and to fight for that. And I didn't facilitate any of it myself. I left it to the experts, although there's lots of parents that have, and they've done incredible jobs, but I've always worked full time, and for me work has always been like my respite, so I relied on amazing tutors, one of which, Oliver, who stayed with us for over 10 years, it was involved with Dylan's care, so incredibly fortunate and lucky. But it was a battle and a fight, and the funding and everything was just really hard. But we did that until he would have gone into, until he was of the age to go into secondary school.
Right. I mean, you spent years dealing with social services. It was already years back then, but obviously you've been, it's further on again now, years and years again, dealing with social services, the different health authorities and education services. Were there moments of unexpected support that you had from them, or was it mostly a battle?
I mean, it was definitely a battle. I mean, it's the system, like individuals that you meet along the way. Many, you're always going to get jobs with, aren't you? But many of them are incredible, passionate, helpful people. That's why they're in that industry. I'll always, praise where it's due. So we have been lucky in lots of respects, but the actual system is just so challenging. It's so hard. There's so much that they could put in place for it to be streamlined. This is going back years and years, and unfortunately I hear from lots of people today that it's in a similar situation. But you're talking about people whose lives are just extremely hard anyhow on a day-to-day basis, and then why is it made so much harder? I have no idea. But it's a system where I laugh now because the children's services I thought was just incredibly difficult, and now I'm in the adult services. It's a whole new podcast. It's so hard. Gosh. It's so hard. But right. It's the red tape, it's the system, it's not the individuals. Most people are great, and are trying their best, but it is what it is, and it's not good enough, and it never will be. But that's why you have to advocate for your own child, because you're their voice in a really, really hard to navigate system. Yeah, unfortunately.
You were back then, I mean, you were juggling a demanding full-time job, and you were raising 2 children at the time. Then things changed for you, and you met someone. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yep, I met Jamie, my now husband of 11 years. And at the time I met him, and believe it or not, he wasn't he wasn't put off by my baggage, as people so lovingly would say about. And he definitely changed our world. He was great. Like I said, he was interested straight away. He wasn't put off. And yeah, it wasn't like on my radar at the time to meet someone at that point, but yeah, we did. We met really organically out in like people used to meet back in the day, we met out and about in town.
What? Not online?
Online.
Actually speaking to someone in person. Imagine that. Actually
Yeah.
speaking to someone in person. Wow.
I
Dear
know.
me.
And he changed everything for us.
I was going to say, obviously, you spoke earlier about the difficulties with Dylan's needs and demands that was placed on the relationship between you and Dylan's dad, which ultimately led to the demise of your relationship. Obviously, you were in a newer relationship then with someone who's not the biological father. So he of Dylan. What challenges, obviously, did that come? Did you feel, did you experience, and how did you get through those challenges? Not what challenges, how did you get through those challenges? The challenges were clearly obvious, but with Jamie being new to it all, how did you actually get through that as a couple?
Yeah, well, I mean, for lots of the really challenging situations we found ourselves with Dylan, like I said, loving Dylan is easy. It's always been the really easy part, absolutely unwavering love for my son. But everything else about, parenting Dylan has been really difficult. And that was, he's my son and that was my life. And then, and I, had to be there. Not that I didn't want to be there, but, that was my reality. Whereas this person is like choosing to be with us. And he probably had a hard time convincing me that he was happy to be with us and he wanted to be with us, and I had a lot of guilt associated with that. And we went on to have our little girl Emily, and I do remember a lot of like guilt surrounding like his I felt like I'd robbed him of like a normal experience of fatherhood, because there was nothing normal in our family. I mean, it was the norm to us, and he knew no different, but knowing that it could be so different and not as hard and extreme, and having Dylan was like having a newborn forever. Like he never slept longer than 4 hours, and they weren't always continuous hours. He was up and about doing things that would potentially put our safety in jeopardy. Like I remember him cooking a packet of foil crisps in the microwave and setting fire to the kitchen, and there's lots of like things that we'd always been so passionate about giving him self-help skills, and lots of it came back to haunt us.
Bless.
But for a long time it was just not that I couldn't believe that anyone would want to be with me, but yeah, it was a lot like that, like why would someone choose this life, and he chose us at every opportunity, and eternally grateful for that. We're still together now, but with that, it did come with massive challenges, And Dylan, like I said, there's no malice in Dylan at all, but when he does have behaviours that they can be catastrophic, and they have been, and the beginning, not the beginning of the end, because that sounds awful and tragic, and it, but one of the first incidents that actually made a difference and changed our world in terms of like safeguarding and social services being involved from the child disability team, and all that was when our daughter was quite young, only a few months old, and Dylan got in the cot with her, and he got in the cot to look at the mobile, and he liked the music and the lights, and we didn't take our new baby or parenthood lightly with a severely autistic child, or a child with severe autism, we'd put lots of things in place in terms of his programme, like desensitising, like a newborn cry, and we did everything that we could to prepare him for that, and he was amazing, and he surpassed our expectations, and he's always been very gentle around them, but he, in his inquisitive nature, and obviously we probably made it a bit of a taboo as well, in terms of like not going in the cot, not touching it, and that, luckily she didn't have any awful injuries or anything like that, but she was, compromised in that time, and it could have been a lot worse if we hadn't caught him at the same time. So that was the beginning of like safeguarding and of them putting things in place for our family. And I always remember, like, he's Emily's biological father, but not once did he ever like attribute any like sort of anger towards Dylan or anything like that. He was always like really understanding of the situation. What can we do then to like make this better and help? And from that then Dylan wasn't upstairs in his bedroom where we were, so we had like almost like a self-contained area built for him off the kitchen in our house, with the hope and purpose of him like always being there with us, but that was the beginning of like the escalations in behaviour, I guess, and how things changed for us as like a family. So yeah.
Was that sort of reality, obviously was that the sort of reality then of like kicking in? I mean, obviously you had Georgia was slightly older, so it was a bit different, but being in a newer relationship and having a younger sibling to Dylan then, was that the first sort of moment where that was a reality check for you, in terms of what could happen and what's to come?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you love all your children, you want to protect your children, and if anything, if one of my, if Dylan had accidentally hurt or compromise their life, or obviously, yeah, the guilt is immense, and also like this is just like not normal family life. You're always like hyper vigilant. You can't leave them in a room alone. It's hard to describe, but yeah, everything is so different. So we ended up taking it into him sleeping outside his room because, as I said, the new extension was off the kitchen. Well, of course, the kitchen, although we had locks everywhere and like bike locks on cupboards and the knives and everything, the reality is that Dylan didn't sleep much and he was up and about in the nights, and so yeah, it was a very, very difficult time. And again, the guilt that you carry for my other children, especially Georgia, who I have immense guilt about just like her childhood being overshadowed by her brother, always having to put his needs first, or that's what it felt like. I mean, we did hopefully do lots of things to like compensate that for Georgia, and if knowing her as you do today, obviously, she's an amazing, wonderful woman. So yeah, but yeah, the guilt you carry for the whole family situation is, and my mum's life, like I said earlier, she pretty much parked her own life and dedicated it to us. And again, that sounds dramatic, but she really did. She retired earlier. She moved house to be closer to us. Absolutely incredible dedication to us, and continues to do so. So yeah, I think it's like a domino effect when you have a child with such severe complex needs, because it affects everybody, and people don't realise the domino effect of what that becomes, really. Yeah.
Must have been both physically and emotionally exhausting at the time. I mean, I know you were juggling a demanding full-time job. You were a probation officer at the time. You were raising then 4 children, caring for Dylan, and just that emotional and physical drain on you. How did you survive those moments, and what did getting through the day, a typical day, look like to you?
I think that a lot of it is a blur, to be honest. I definitely used work as respite. Obviously it would have been a lot easier to not work. And I don't think, looking like the finances around it, I don't think I would have been any like financially better off by actually staying in work. But for me, it was definitely respite, and I did use it as just an opportunity to be Rachel, and and just like completely box everything else and go into the office and have a hot coffee and have like really lovely supportive colleagues stroke friends that would ask, "Oh, how was your night?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, wonderful," like people that did know about obviously the situation at home, and lots of people. I started in probation when Dylan was, when I came back to Swansea. Dylan was quite young. It was after diagnosis, but he was probably only 3. I had a work mum, Anne Kirkhoff, who was still very much involved in our life today, and really, really supportive colleagues there. But yeah, I basically went through every day just lying, and I know that sounds awful, but you know, I'd just be, yeah, no, brilliant, thank you, and I could just not face it while I was in work. I'd often go to work and not remember the drive, like being so tired. But yeah, it was definitely a coping mechanism, and it's hard to talk negatively about your child, isn't it? You know, you just so it was much easier for me to put like a completely new slant on it, even if it wasn't the truth. You know, it was
absolutely
a mechanism to get through the day. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, nobody ever wants to speak bad of their children or bad of the experience that that you might have been going through with your child. But and obviously you're no exception, and you've never spoken bad. And in fact, you're one of these people who have just said now yourself. But I can absolutely vouch for you. You know, you will rather not talk about the bad times and just suffer in silence. Just than speaking out and saying the true reality of the situation, of what you've, unfortunately, as dire and, bad as it is and has been, you have generally taken that in silence and suffered in silence and not spoken about it, not spoken up about it or shared those experiences. But how do you feel? Looking back now, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, but looking back now, do you feel that you could have or should have spoken up a bit more about the reality of what you were actually going through?
I think with hindsight, like you said, it is a wonderful thing. And I think we probably did ourselves a lot of disservice at the time, in terms of like what was actually happening. There's like research out there that compares being a parent of a severely autistic child to like combat. You know, like you're completely hypervigilant all the time. You're just waiting for the next, incident really. And like I said, loving Dylan is so easy, but it's very conflicting to your heart to be just to be constantly hypervigilant and cortisol levels so high, and then to be fearful of your child, someone that you love so much. But as Dylan grew and got stronger, and which is quite a common trait with children on the severe end of the spectrum, lots go through puberty early, and there's lots of testosterone, and his strength, and I'm 5'11", his dad's over 6 foot. He was a big boy, and I think as he grew bigger and it was just harder to manage the behaviours, it was easier not to talk about it. It was just easier just to, I'd often have like black eyes or like visual injuries, so obviously you at some point you had to disclose stuff, but it's always difficult because that's my baby, that's my son, that's my child, and I love him with all my heart, So yeah, for me, it was just always easier just to continue and just pretend like, and I still do that today, depending on who you talk to. Like often people will ask me, about my children and stuff, and I will not lie, but I will leave it ambiguous. So he was residing in Cardiff, and I would often say, like, my daughter's in University of Newcastle, my son's in Cardiff. Like, do you know what I mean? And
say.
Yeah, so because, to go into things all the time, it's quite difficult, isn't it, So, yeah, for me, it's just self-preservation, I think. A lot of it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just giving yourself a little bit of respite from what your home life is actually like. I used to go in. I remember going into work before years ago, and I just exactly in the same position where you just feel like I'm going in. I don't want to talk about anything. Don't want to, and then you're just so focused on everything else. It just takes stuff away from what the reality of the situation is, back home or somewhere else going on in your life. So, totally understand that. But obviously, by you not being as vocal about it, then to some people, it is overlooked a bit, and I think people might have been a bit more or could have been a bit more helpful to you if you had said something, but you know, as like you said, you didn't want to talk about it. It was a respite to you, and just having that bit of peace while you were in the workplace.
Yeah.
And as you said, those who needed to know knew. So there's just no point, I suppose. But I do remember, Rach, like, I know there's been some really, really, really trying times, and really challenging situations that you've faced over the years and still continue to face. But one of the times that stuck with me is from the earlier days, which is when, like, I think I spoke to you in the morning. I think I rang you for something, and just to see how you were. And you said that you'd had a really bad night, a particularly bad night with Dylan, and you described that night as like hell in a cell. And that has just stuck with me like forever. I always remember you saying, you know, in those dark moments back then, and I know that you've been through darker ones since, but back then, can you share with us what that time felt like for you, and how did you keep going during those incredibly tough moments?
I think you just do. Like, I know it sounds silly, but you're like on autopilot. A lot of it is just like, what's the alternative? There is none. You just got to keep going. And then you look back and think, wow, how? I mean, up until I met Jay, when it was just sort of me, mum and the kids, I think lots of it, the guilt that I was like ruining my mum's life, that what kind of life has Georgia got, being overshadowed all the time. And it was definitely times where I thought, it's awful to say now, you know, but like, it was definitely times I thought, God, it would be, probably everyone's life would be easier if me and Dylan were part of it, you know. And that's really hard to, like, you know, to even, definitely to talk about, but, you know, to even think out loud, you know. But there was like one time, and like we hadn't like slept for days, and I always remember there's a very short distance between my mum's house and my house now, because she moved closer to be with us. And we were walking down the hill, and a van was going really fast, and Dylan went to run across the road, and my initial reaction as a mum was to grab him, and then fleetingly it was like, well, if I don't, everything might be okay. And then thinking, what the hell, and grabbing him, you know. And I, as a mum, like the guilt to even think anything like that, you know. But there was definitely some like dark times. I thought, what is this world, or what, you know. And yeah, but you know, you've got a beautiful little girl that's dependent on you as well. And then later on, having Jay like to support and be there always, as well as my, like, I'm so lucky, you know, I'm so lucky with my friends, my family. I've always had people that are there, you know, for me and for us. But yeah, I just, I don't know, you just look back and you think, wow, how? And I think, like I said, lots of it hurts your heart, because you just love this person so much, and you had so much high hopes, and, you know, you want them, you know, what could have been and what should have been, and yeah, you can't help but think that if you had the magic wand, you know. But yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, it is what it is, isn't it? You have to deal with the cards that you're dealt with, and do the best you can with the tools you have in that moment, don't you? And what's the alternative? So yeah.
I know, but you say that so kind of, you know, well, that's it. It's matter of fact. You say that was, you know, such a matter of fact of, well, what's the alternative? But unfortunately, you know, for some people, they don't have the same level of strength and resilience as you. And that would have broken, you know, easily by a country mile, even the strongest of people. And they would never have been criticised for that. So you having gone through and continue to go through like all of these really huge challenges that you faced with Dylan, and still be so strong, and still be so supportive, and still be such an amazing advocate and mother to Dylan and to the rest of your children. I just want to like hammer home to you, Rach, that it's not a case of, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is a very real, you know, prospect of somebody ending up in, you know, a mental institution, having had a nervous breakdown, you know, and that's a real, you know, alternative. But yeah, and that's testament to you, because your strength and your resilience throughout has been and continues to be absolutely phenomenal. And I really commend you and love you for that.
Thank you.
So And I just wanted to remind you of that, because you never take any credit, and you're never really very kind on yourself. You're always quite hard on yourself, and your feelings. And I just sometimes want to take an opportunity just to let you know actually how blinking amazing that you are. So yeah, well done, Rach. Just going back to Dylan's difficult and challenging moments. Obviously, there have been some particularly difficult moments, including Dylan's outbursts, where he's attacked you, and that is in no way a reflection of Dylan, but rather his obvious frustration and inability to communicate his needs, and so on. But in those moments, do you find yourself suffering in silence, perhaps protecting Dylan, I suppose, from being judged by those who may not understand what he's going through?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's obviously as the incidents got like more frequent or more like violent, and like I just want to stress, like, there's no malice in Dylan. Honestly, he's like a gentle giant, but obviously he's like a 6'2" toddler, having a massive tantrum, and it's anything in the vicinity, So yeah, as they got more like prevalent, and of course when they happened in public, that changed everything as well. See, so whereas I could safeguard Dylan and a lot of what was happening at home, when it was in the public domain, you can't. And a lot of what happened to us as a family was totally taken out of my hands from like safeguarding point of view. And it sounds ludicrous, really, but I mean, at the time it was heartbreaking and devastating, but maybe even a blessing in disguise, which is really hard to like admit, because I would never ever have been able to say, like, I can't do this anymore, And even though you'd think as a mum to the other children, and you obviously want to always protect them and stuff, I still could never have chosen who you loved them. That kind, I could never have done that, like I said. So for me, when everything changed and those big incidents happened, and it was taken out of my hands, and Dylan was actually placed in residential care, and obviously at the time, honestly, it was soul destroying. It was absolutely heartbreaking, and I will maintain to this day that the guilt that's involved with that, and the emotions that go hand in hand with having your child like removed from your care, and you're not the decision maker anymore. And whilst he was in child services, which luckily or unluckily in learning difficulties up to 19, so sort of older than if it was a typical child, then I'm very much involved with those decision making process. But when they go into adult services, then you're not. I mean, I like to think that they listen to me and will take my view into consideration, but every single thing that is determined about my child is best interest meetings. They're actually making these decisions for my child. So it was bittersweet. It was absolutely heartbreaking, horrendous, awful, and like I always stress, the guilt of him being there is as crippling as the day-to-day stress of him being at home, and people don't get that bit. And I think I'll never ever come to terms with that, even though he's 22. So like, would he be naturally at home with me now? Maybe not. I'd like to think he would have gone to university, and in my head that's how I process it. Like he's in university, comes home every week, that kind of thing. That's how I do. I've always been able to deal with it like that. But to have that decision, to have that taken out of your hands, and people commenting on that, like you've given up on your child, that was the hardest part of all of it, And
You actually did. Sorry, come on.
No, to this day, that's how I feel. I still feel like if I wake up, I've had a good day, or we have like, we all do something as a family and Dylan's not there, the guilt is crazy, I phone him every day, I video call him every night. We've got this routine where, I love you, and he says it, and I say, I love you too, Dylan, and we do, star Yaki Da, which is not even Welsh, bonsoir, good night, and we have this, we do, so I'm very, very involved with Dylan's day-to-day life, but it's heartbreaking to me, and it always will be, that this is our world, this is our life, and it's not what I wanted, it's not what I planned, and if I had the magic wand, it wouldn't, it's not what I'd have, so
Of course. I mean, obviously, you were faced with that situation that no parent should ever have to go through. When that decision was, thankfully, in a way, taken out of your hands, because if they and social services came in and took Dylan into residential care, but if you had to make that decision yourself, choosing between your children, I mean, I know you said there's no way you could have made that decision and you couldn't have been blamed. So slight blessing in disguise that decision was made for you. But you said that after he went into care, there was a couple of people then that found it within themselves to judge you negatively and criticize you. I mean, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I'm devastated, honestly. But then I have to take some responsibility for that in terms of like the misrepresentation as of what I'd put out there for for people to know about. So I've always been extremely positive about Dylan and praised all his achievements and very much been so proud of him. So I think people were genuinely just shocked that this had happened because of me not being forthright with the accurate information and not lying, but like I said, just not saying the truth about things. So over time I had to take some of that responsibility for that. And also ultimately, even if I had made that decision, it's nobody's business, is it? And people are so quick to criticize. Like I would challenge anyone to have like one day in my shoes at that time, But yeah, I think it's important to, like I said, always just to be kind. Nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors. And I just think, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like one incident that happened. It was lots of different things that happened that you want to protect. It's not like, well, I keep saying not lying, but it's like protecting yourself. It's that self-preservation. If you talk about it, it's true. You have to like, people just don't understand. So, for me to tell people that the injuries on my face are due to my child, it's really difficult. So, I remember at the time actually, so the incident that the last big incident was on the 1st of January. It was like, Happy New Year, take this. And it was the year of COVID, so it was 2020. And that's when, like I said, everything absolutely did change for us because the incident happened in a really public place. I'd kept Dylan home for the whole of Christmas. I've never not had Christmas with my child, and they did talk to me about that, and sticking to his routines would be better for him, but I felt so guilty about not having him over for the whole of Christmas, so that's what we did. And then I took him back on the 1st of January. I was meeting them in a service station quite close to his school in Cardiff, and he was becoming distressed. Luckily, I made the decision to phone them and say, look, we're here early because I was taking him for food, please come now. And lucky I did because, yeah, he became really, really upset. And he used to, like, I don't know if you remember, he used to bite me, didn't he? He used to go to bite me in frustration, no malice. So it was 1st of January, it was frost on the floor. I had, like, heeled boots on, stupid. And so I wrapped his coat around my arm because I thought he was going to bite me because he just got really upset really quickly. But at this particular time, he didn't. He'd pushed me, and of course, I didn't have my arms then, they were covered in the coat, and I've gone backwards and apparently I've gone to correct myself and just, smashed right, and of course right in front of a car, it was just, and had quite, as you know, quite a severe head injury. So that, and of course it was in the public, and that's the difference. See, if that had happened maybe behind closed doors, and who knows, but, and that's what happened, and that was, the decision was made then that he would be in full-time residential. So it was a really hard time. Not long after then, COVID struck. Luckily it wasn't long that we didn't have to see him because the government did decide it would be in his best interest to maintain contact. So lucky for me, but otherwise that would have been horrific as well. So, but that was the the beginning of it, really. Of full-time residential.
That must have been so incredibly hard for you, Rach, to deal with these incidents, because you, as a mum, you absolutely love and adore your child and will do anything for them, and then in the next breath you are being severely injured as a result of their outbursts. It must have been so hard for you to cope with that emotionally, emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
How were you feeling at that time? What was going through your head?
I was devastated. I was, absolutely. But I can honestly, categorically state, I've never ever like attributed any blame to Dylan. Like, Dylan has no concept of what he's done. He loves me. I love him. You know, it's never ever about, you know, I can't stress enough how there's no malice in Dylan. He's just beautiful, beautiful boy. But yeah, it was a lot of so much guilt, embarrassment that, you know, that I couldn't deal with my child. And, you know, there's lots of different emotions going on, but one of just like loss, you know, like I felt like I was grieving for a child, and, you know, thank God he hadn't died. But that did put in perspective of what could have happened if I hadn't have made that call. I was knocked out. So like, he was running round. He, like you know, we mentioned earlier, it's an invisible disability, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be long in Dylan's presence now, obviously, to know that there is something. But he was, you know, on a very, very busy Corton roundabout. It was actually. So, you know, in terms of like cars, he could have been hit by, you know, there's so many things that could have happened. So I think a lot of it was, like I said, relief that actually it was just me that was injured, not him. But also this, you know, a realisation that, you know, what are we waiting for? You know, what's going to happen next, you know? So I think, like I said, it changed everything. At the time, it was the most soul-destroying, devastating time ever. But I would never have made that call, that decision myself, you know? And of course, it led to other, hopefully, better things that not, you know, that for myself, because following that and sort of like the knowledge that things are going to be so different, I had to do something in my head, and I know you get this because you're the same. We have these like ideas and we have to do something, but I had to make it worth it. You know, nothing was worth it. My words are not coming out as I'm thinking them now, but it was so catastrophic. It was so soul destroying. I had to do something that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, you know, and that is why I went back to uni to retrain and become a midwife, because something good had to come of something so horrific. If that makes any sense to anyone, I don't know.
Obviously going back to university and retraining to become a midwife, that's been a long-standing ambition of yours anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But to make that choice then and that decision at that time must have kind of, because going back to uni, uni first time around, never mind second time, whoa. But yeah, making that decision to go back to uni and study again for a number of years and qualify, in a profession like that, midwifery, is obviously quite intense, and that must have brought some comfort to you, and obviously distracted you, to help you. I would have thought as a way of a coping mechanism to.
Definitely.
Dylan going into residential care. Is that like a accurate reflection of how you felt at the time, or?
Yeah, definitely. I just thought, like I said, I had to do something that would, have some positive outcome after such like a devastating event, really. I didn't know it was going to be so hard. I didn't know that. Yeah, definitely.
You never do anything that's easy, Rach. So yeah, why would you not know?
Oh, the hardest thing I've ever done. I've got so much admiration for these, for midwives and the women that not the women.
Yeah, but that's you. That's you now too. So we're all in admiration of you.
No, it's definitely been it's been hard, but hopefully worth it.
Yeah.
So, and again, so the fact that Dylan is now in full-time residential in an adult service hasn't been plain sailing at all. The transition has been really difficult. So navigating first of all university and assignments and placements, 'cause it's not like a normal university degree. You've got all these things that you have to achieve, and 40 births, and it's it's hard, you know. So navigating that with family, and then having like obviously the ongoing stuff with Dylan and my health, you know, after having my little boy, my health has been just atrocious as a consequence. But yeah, so it's definitely been a distraction. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I did it. I honestly can't. There must be like some fairies up there looking after me or something. But yeah, you know, and again, I've been so lucky because I've met some wonderful now friends that, you know, that were my mentors, and I even gained a university daughter, you know. So I have been very, very, very lucky, but it has been hard, and the transition from like to a newly qualified midwife as well, with everything going on behind the scenes with Dylan, because we've had a really challenging like sort of 18 months with him having like quite severe head injuries, and that's been really hard again, and to navigate the guilt that's associated with that, because he's there to be safe and then he's not safe, you know. So having the constant calls that he's in A&E, it's just, yeah, it's ever evolving, but it doesn't get easier. In fact, I think, like I've said continuously, that, you know, it's almost as hard him being in residential as it is being at home, which people just don't get.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, anybody listening into that could be forgiven for thinking how on earth could she possibly say that, you know. But having Dylan back at home was an absolute nightmare and hell in a cell, as you've described it before. And then to say that it's almost of equal, you know, torment to you to have him like in residential care. I think that's the love of a mother. It's a mum. It's definitely a mother that can feel that enormous guilt, you know, and can understand that. Yeah, really incredibly hard and difficult times for you, Rach. I know that every year on Autism Awareness Day, you do take to social media and you put a post on there where you are like brutally honest about the reality of life with a child with severe autism and what that's like, and some of the experiences, you know, the real worst of the experiences that you've had from some of the challenges with Dylan. How do you find the strength to lay yourself bare in those posts? And do you ever feel like you silence yourself for the rest of the time? For whatever reason, maybe to protect Dylan, self-preservation, as you've said as well before.
Yeah, I feel like now, after going through over 20 years of this sort of journey with Dylan, that I have like a responsibility. And, you know, like I've said previously, I've fed into that misrepresentation of severe end of autism, because like even today when people talk about autism, you know, it's not the harsh reality of the severe end, not always. In fact, most of the time it's like the other end of the spectrum, and my heart honestly goes out to the parents and the children, young people that are on the lower end, because like I've said, I feel like for us, Dylan being so severe, you know, there's no you know, we know where we are, kind of thing. And that he doesn't know that he's different. He doesn't understand, you know, in his world, like I said, hopefully for the majority of the time Dylan's happy, you know, going to the park and going to the sea, you know, he's happy in his world, whereas, you know, others aren't that lucky. And so I feel like, I feel it is a bit of a responsibility now. There's people out there starting this journey, which I know is going to be so hard for them, you know, and you just want to be supportive and encouraging. And I also know that they're going to look at my child and feel like what I did when he was a cute little 4-year-old or 3-year-old, you know, when I went to that school and saw adults and teenagers like Dylan, you know. So I just want people to know, to give them the recognition, you know, and that this is hard, you know, like be kind. You have no idea what they're going through. So yeah, I feel like and it's only one day a year, but it's the 2nd of April, it's the National Autism Awareness Day. And I feel it's a responsibility actually, because for the rest of the time I I will always post my lovely pictures, and it's a fake book, isn't it? But people do take note of that. So I want people to know that actually, they're doing amazing jobs. They might not have the support that I have, but I'll always be there if they need anything. If I am in contact with lots of different mums, and I will continue to be. But yeah, and just for them to be kind to themselves, because it's so hard. It's so hard. And then you've got all the additional things that you shouldn't have to go through, like navigating this ridiculous systems. And, just last month I had to attend a meeting because Dylan hadn't attended a jobs fair, and he's not applying for 5 jobs with a universal credit. And you just want to smash your head against the wall. Half of me wanted me to take him there and open the doors and let him attend. It's just crazy. And like I keep saying to them, if I had a magic wand, then obviously he would be there in attendance. But the system is ridiculous, and a lot of it, I know people do abuse that system, hence why they have these things in place. But for the genuine cases, like people like Dylan, it should be rubber stamped and that's the end of it, But it's not that easy, and everything is hard. So yeah, for me, I every year I will just continue to do that, just so people know that they're not alone, really, and it's bloody hard, They should
absolutely right.
some credit.
Yeah, Rach, hats off to you. I mean, you've obviously suffered a lot in silence, and there's been a lot of your emotions that you haven't spoken up about, and been very vocal about. You've just, kept them in, and I'm sure that there's going to be so many other parents, mums and dads, and, parents across the globe who will be feeling the same, and not speaking up about their emotions. What sort of emotions do you think, I mean, judging by obviously what you have gone through and the emotions that you felt and you silenced, what emotions do you think they might be holding in that you could tell them, oh, please just let it go, or I see you, I feel you, this is normal?
I think the guilt, I think that's like the number one, the number one sort of, and it like affects everything and ruins everything, really, and it doesn't serve you at all. However, I am like riddled with guilt on every level. So and I've had therapy and I've had treatments, and I don't know what the answer is to that. I think it's sort of inbuilt, maternal. I don't know. I really don't. But what I would say is, please just be kind to yourself. And I know, you shout at me for not being kind to myself. And it's something that I will always, like, the women in my care, it's just so important to like step back and look how far you've come. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I would never wish this on anyone, and if I had a magic wand, I'm never ever going to be that mum that says I wouldn't change Dylan in a heartbeat, because I would 100% change him if I could, because why would you ever want your child to go through adversity and have, make things hard for them? So yeah, I'm never going to be that person, but what I would say is, always be kind. That's all I can say, really. I mean, the other thing I have to mention is, although most of what I've spoken about today is, been not negative, but realistic, but like autism, like for Georgia, my daughter, who I've, like I said, immense guilt about in terms of her whole childhood being overshadowed, but her whole future has been like carved by Dylan's journey and her experience of being a sibling of someone on the severe end, and I couldn't be more proud of her achievements to date. And she's got her graduation for her master's coming up, and she works in the industry. Her plan is to be either she's going to go do a doctorate or her teaching to her PGCE next. So for her, all that worry that I've had in terms of how autism has affected her, it's carved her sort of future. She's such an advocate for him now. She's sort of like taking the place of my long suffering mum, bless her. She attends meetings, so I'm not saying that, but there are some positive things that have come out
Positives.
of the people we've met,
Yeah.
the experiences that we've had. You know, we were part of the autism bill that went to Brussels, to the to the European courts. You know, there's been a lot of things that I'm really proud of. And just the people that I've met as a consequence of Dylan's journey, really. I am lucky.
And Georgia is fantastic, and like you said, but for Dylan's autism, she probably wouldn't have taken. This isn't a path that she would have taken, but it's one that I think would bring you a great deal of comfort now, knowing that she's such an advocate. Because as parents, we always, imagine one day, just being realistic again, imagine one day of a time where we are not around, and knowing that Georgia is how fantastic that she is in supporting and advocating for Dylan now. It's only going to grow and grow stronger. That gives you some sort of relief as well for the future, because we never know, and we hope we all live until we're 100. But we just just having that just having that comfort that a sibling then. Because
I've got Amelie and Hunter, my other two children as well. To have that at such a young age, to have that understanding, and that just they're just beautiful kids in terms of like they're so accepting. I mean, they don't know any different, but accepting of other people in situations as well, and just in their environments and in school, they're just good kids. And I think Dylan has, like, he's what I always say, like he opened our eyes by opening our hearts, and that's true, because we look at things differently, and it's not a competition. However, you hear people saying things and you just think, oh, you have no idea how lucky you are. You don't say it, obviously, you're not going around, but I do think I think he's shaped all our worlds, for the better as well, because we know how hard life can be, but also how rewarding and amazing some people are. So I will always maintain that I'm one of the lucky ones.
Definitely. Your mum in particular has been such a fantastic support network for you, and there's a lot of people who don't have that support network around them. Is there, like, for those who might be listening now feeling isolated or overwhelmed or judged, what would you say to them? Is there something that you wish someone might have told you when you were at your lowest, right?
I think it's just that it will be okay. Like, everything will be okay. It might not be okay right now, but it will be okay. You will get through it. I mean, a lot of it you shouldn't have to, the things that you're faced with, but you're going to be okay, and you just got to believe in yourself, and advocate for yourself as well. Like, we're so like confident in advocating for our child, but you need to advocate for yourself as well. And I do wish like a bit of a martyr at times, looking back. Definitely fiercely independent, brought up by a single mum, and I just if you have the opportunity, and I know I'm lucky and lots of people don't, but find your tribe, find your people. It doesn't have to be blood. Like, look at us, we've always had each other's backs. We always will. It doesn't have to be blood. If you're lucky enough to have a family like mine, you're lucky enough. But I do appreciate not everyone is. So, but there are people out there. There's organisations out there. I found joining groups and things like that really hard in the beginning. I didn't find it that helpful to begin with. I felt it was a bit of a competition, whose child was the worst, and I found that really hard, because like I always want to be positive. Like, he's doing this, I'm so proud he can do this, he said this word, he put litter in the bin, the small things that everyone else doesn't see or take for granted are massive and huge, and so I just think, find your people, find your tribe, and just be kind to yourself, because there's so many people relying on you. But ultimately, you've got to love yourself first. You've got to, if your cup's half empty, then you can't pour for everyone else, or whatever the analogy is. And I've been very guilty of forgetting that, and going back to restudy and do midwifery, you know, it could have been looked at as the most selfish thing I've ever done. And I grappled with that a lot, and there's a lot of guilt associated with that, you know, financial hit for the family. Georgia was in uni herself, you know, I haven't had any money for all these years, but sometimes you just got to put things in perspective, and yeah, and you just got to just be there for yourself first so you can be there for everyone else.
You just got to do you, babes.
Gotta do you, babe.
You got to do you, babes. Yeah, and I was going to say, just to add to that, Rach. No, you say about being kind, you know, be kind to yourself, and you're the world's worst for not being kind to yourself, you know, and I wish you would
I'm
just,
trying, I am.
I wish you would not be so hard on yourself, because you really are sometimes, and it's really frustrating for friends and family to see you self-destruct and torture yourself sometimes. But yeah, I wish you would be a bit kinder to yourself, and appreciating exactly where you've come, because the distance that you've traveled and continue to travel on your journey is nothing short of remarkable and commendable on every level. So well done, you.
Thank you.
Tell us about life now. I mean, how are things for you now, for Dylan, for the rest of your beautiful family? What does daily life look like for you today, Rach?
Yeah, so yeah, it's me and my husband both had midlife crisis and retrained. So Jay is now a firefighter, loving his job, works really hard, doing really, really well. The kids are they're fantastic. Georgia's back in Swansea, bought a house with her wonderful boyfriend, Jacob. So yeah, family, as you know, is really, really, really important to me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so yeah, we just... I've had a bit of time off work following a full hysterectomy, but it's been yeah, it's a bit bad, isn't it, to have surgery for respite, but yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to work and starting my career again. And yeah, we see Dylan every single week, talk to him. Technology's fantastic, isn't it? So I get to like FaceTime him, like I said, every night. So I'm not going to lie, that, you know, we do have the ongoing challenges with Dylan, and his self-interest behaviours have been really difficult, especially when you're in work and you know, you're seeing pictures, or you're navigating some, you know, the calls that come in. But yeah, again, I've had some real support from work and everyone around me. So I always remember, I just have to say this, one of my band sevens in work who actually just said, go to your son. And, you know, like, it's incredible, isn't it? You know, just, you don't have to worry about work or anything, just go to your son. And yeah, I feel really lucky and privileged. So life at the moment is grand, and I'm touching a lot of wood right now. But yeah, so lucky with my friends and family, and yeah, I'm really, really privileged.
It makes a massive difference, doesn't it, in the workplace, where you have people around you that understand your needs, and we're in this life, you know, for a good time, not a long time, and family, you know, your family matters, and there are times where you have to put your family first, and just to have that comfort of somebody in the workplace superior to you just going, just go to your family.
Yeah.
That's a luxury and a benefit that so many people in their workplace don't have. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people in the workplace, unfortunately, will be saying, well, that's your problem, you know, we need you here, and you know, and they're just torn between that massive guilt of going to their family and being there for their needs with, you know, being stuck in the workplace.
And I know that she would say, and she has said, you know, and on the flip side, people saying, well, absolutely they should, you know, but you're right, they don't. And so to have that, you know, support from, and I'm new there. They don't really know me from Adam, do they? You know, I'm new. It's been a blur, challenging with everything that's going on as well. And yeah, so to have that support from people, it's been incredible. Honestly, I feel just really, really lucky. I've been lucky with my 2 careers to date. Yeah, so it's all good. It's all good for now, and that's all you can.
Good.
That's all you can hope for, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to finish off, Rach, what do you think? What keeps you going? Like, what gives you hope? And what this journey has been long and immense, and continues to be. What have you learned about yourself through this journey?
I've learnt that I say sorry a lot. No, I think that, honestly, and like I've said it, so, you know, and I'll continue to say it, that I just think, like, for me personally, if you're lucky enough to have a family like me, you're lucky enough. So I think it's love. Sounds really cliche, and my husband would be like, oh my God, cringe and cheeseball. But it is, I am eternally grateful and lucky. I like to think that I'm there for them as well, so it's like a two-way thing, and for others. But yeah, for me it would be just just appreciating what you have, and the little things are massive, like Dylan's always going to be Dylan, but I'm lucky that because of my children, he's always going to have someone. Like, I never ever wanted them to take over like the care role. I have no expectation of that, but I do expect them to be in contact with him forever, and I know that they will. So when I'm not there, I know that he will always have someone, because that was the greatest fear of mine, that what will happen when I die, and also driving force behind having other children, so it wasn't all on Georgia. But I am safe in the knowledge that my children are just beautiful, wonderful, caring, compassionate, kind, loving children that will always have their brother's best interest at heart, and I can't ask for anything else, can I? So
No.
And that's who they are. I can't teach them that. That's who they are, that's who they are. So I'm very, very, very lucky, Yeah, and that just my friends and family and my colleagues who are now friends. I'm just lucky. But I'm lucky.
Well, that's testament to you, Rach, because obviously, and Jamie too, because you brought them up. But they wouldn't be the children that they are if it wasn't for you, and seeing how you've been and how you've been towards them, and how much of a brilliant mum you've been, not only to them but to Dylan too, in the face of such adversity. So that's really is testament to you, Rach. So well done you.
Thank you.
Rach, I thank you so much for being on our show today. Your bravery in sharing your story today has obviously been nothing short of inspiring. Through your words, you've shed light on the raw and painful moments of motherhood, but also the deep love and resilience that have carried you through. Your honesty about the tough decisions that you've had to make and the battles that you've fought will undoubtedly offer hope and comfort to so many people who feel like they're navigating their struggles alone. So thank you so much for being so open and for allowing us to see the journey that many don't understand but need to. Your strength, your love for Dylan, and your ability to keep going even when life felt impossibly heavy at times, so many times, are a beacon for those who may be facing similar challenges. To everyone listening, if this episode moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, and follow Unspoken Emotions for more stories like this. And don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, remember that there's strength in every step and courage in every story. Big love.